What is up? It is a New Year's edition of the Splash Act podcast. So happy New Year's and happy 2021. It's January 4th. And today I'm joined by Ji Hun once again. He was on about a month ago when he and I broke down kind of our reactions to the John Wall trade. And now we're about 2 weeks into the NBA season. So I brought him on once again. We're going to talk about surprises, disappointments, things that have kind of played to form, and so forth. So without further ado, I'm joined by Ji Hun. How you doing, man?
Yeah, I'm doing well. Thanks for inviting me back, Matt. This is exciting. On the NBA season, I feel like it's only been 2 weeks, but I feel like there's been so many games.
Yeah, first and foremost, happy to have you back, obviously. But yeah, I mean, like just the fact that they're playing a lot of games. I mean, they have this condensed schedule where, the same teams may play back to back, or a team will travel to the other conference and play, four straight road games in a stretch of 5 days. There's definitely a lot of basketball. And because of, the protocols and whatnot, you're seeing, I think, deeper rotation. So you're seeing more guys play. So, I'm curious, just right off the bat, like what's one thing that has really surprised you thus far? And it can be anything. It can be a player. It can be something about how the season's playing out. It can be about a team, protocols, or whatnot. Free agency. I don't know. What's something that surprised you?
Well, I guess before I dive into the surprise, did you watch the Steph Curry game yesterday? By the way.
Yes, I did actually. I only tuned in the second half once I realized, like, okay, he could go for 50. And I was like, oh, shoot, he could go for 60. And it's just always really cool to see dudes, kind of have career performances like that. And yeah, so did you watch it?
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. Yesterday I was about to go to sleep. I turned on Twitter just last minute before I went to sleep, and Twitter was blowing up because of Curry was I think he was at 57 or something when I saw the news. Yeah, so it was pretty crazy, man. Especially when players like Curry go supernova, it's always exciting, and feels like the NBA. I feel like it's been 0 days since it's been drama free. Speaking of dramas, yeah, I think one thing that did really surprise me was I thought the biggest drama in the offseason was with the whole James Harden situation.
Yep.
Um, I was pretty surprised to see that James Harden is still on the Rockets. Now that the Rockets are playing games too. I wasn't sure what to expect from them. But it seemed like Christian Wood is looks so good. And John Wall is also back from his injury too, so it's kind of been a crazy season for them.
Yeah. So, you've brought up two things here. So first, I want to touch on James Harden. It is kind of crazy. Like I feel like it's such an awkward situation, the fact that he's still in Houston, but at the same time, like he was trying really hard to force his way out, and I feel like some of that absolutely tanked his trade value. But like you said, Christian Wood, I feel like Christian Wood is the type of big you would love to play with James Harden, right? As opposed to someone who is strictly, a dive and a roller guy, a roller threat, like like a Clint Capella. I really like the versatility that Christian Wood has with regards to he's able to put the ball on the floor, he's able to finish at the rim, but he's also able to potentially play out on the perimeter every time he screens for James Harden. But it looks like James Harden's on his way out, so I don't know if we're gonna see that partnership last for too long. But on the note of John Wall, like Boogie and John Wall, both of them obviously are on the Rockets now, and both of them have had injuries, pretty devastating injuries. But I think maybe the fact that John Wall had so much time off, like he looks good, man.
Yeah, I was watching his first game back, and every bucket he scored, man, I was so upset. Just like, damn, like he could have been in the Wizards, man. But it is what it is. And I think he had that one steal against De'Aaron Fox. I'm not sure if it was a steal, but they were like he was hustling to try to save the ball out of bounds, and then it went off of Fox. And I was like, he was like yelling at the non-existent crowd, being like, "Yo, I'm back, I'm back." And I was like, "God damn, why couldn't this be in a Wizards uniform?" But yeah, but it's I think the thing it's crazy. Like the Houston team, like I guess James Harden wanted to kind of force his way out, partially because he didn't think the Rockets would be a contender, right? But now that I'm looking at this team, they're pretty stacked, like especially compared to the past couple seasons where it's just been him, Eric Gordon and insert the point guard there and PJ Tucker. Now they got Christian Wood. Now they got DeMarcus Cousins. They apparently Tate, the rookie, apparently he's pretty good. John Wall's looking fine. It's a pretty deep team.
Yeah, Tate's certainly been one of the pleasant surprises of this NBA season so far. I don't know, he's a little bit like a mini PJ Tucker if you ask me, because he's a little
Yeah.
undersized, but he's a big dude and he plays with a lot of energy and toughness.
Yeah, and it's pretty incredible that going back to Christian Wood, I feel like so many NBA teams gave up on this guy. Like the Pistons decided not to give him a big contract, but instead they signed Mason Plumlee and Jeremy Grant.
Yep.
This guy used to be on the Pelicans. When they were looking for talent to surround AD. I felt like coming into the season when he got his contract in Houston, I wasn't sure what to feel because I hadn't seen a guy apparently with this much hype where so many teams gave up on him, you know what I mean? So I wasn't sure exactly what I was expecting from him, but I wasn't expecting this, you know what I mean? Like, I think at one point he was bringing up the ball and he scored, just like bringing up the bucket, and I was like, dang, like this is crazy, man. This might be the third, like I guess aside from Chris Paul and Russell Westbrook, he might be the most talented player Harden's played with.
Yeah.
On the Rockets.
Sure. Hold on. I'm looking at his history. Like, this is crazy. His first 3 years in the league. Well, so he plays 30 games in his first 2 years. Doesn't play from the 2017 to 18 season. And then in the 18-19 season, he starts the year off with the Bucks, who ended up, being the number 1 seed in the East.
Oh wow,
Plays 13 games with them and barely plays, right? Like 5 minutes a game. Then ends up in New Orleans. Let me see. Yeah, he gets waived by the Bucks in March. Wow. So he wasn't playing for this, this contender. Plays 8 games with New Orleans and then ends up in Detroit, where he played 62 games out of a total of 113 games up to that point. So, wow. It really is quite an incredible story. Like, this dude was bouncing around. Like I said, he was riding the pine for some bad teams like the Sixers and then some good teams like the Bucks. And then he had a good year in Detroit, and now he's really being able to step up and show what he can do in Houston.
Yeah, it's an incredible story, honestly.
Yeah, but I mean, he's certainly one of the more versatile guys that James Harden has played with on the Rockets. Like, I feel like and this is a function of Morey ball and the decision making, but I feel like everybody that James Harden has played with in Houston was like a specialist or like had a very specific role, right? And they were usually like pretty good at that role. But the idea was like, let's maximize James, and we want these people that fill in very specific needs and maybe only good at like one thing. But if they're good at one thing, that's all we need them for, right? So Christian Wood is definitely probably the most versatile guy that we've been able to see him play with.
Right, and I think going back to sorry to spend so much time talking about the Rockets, but I think one thing that also impressed me about watching them is just how athletic John Wall looks, and I feel like even on defense, every layup that he was contesting, going for blocks, I think he's recorded 2 or 3 blocks already. Just kind of incredible to see, like especially with Westbrook. I think one knock on him was that he didn't play that hard on defense. He would kind of let the opponents kind of go by him and then just try to go for the board and kind of rack up his triple-double. But John Wall looks like he'll be really good next to Harden too.
Yeah, no, certainly. Now, speaking of Harden, like you think he's there after the trade deadline?
Yeah, that's a great question. I was going to ask you the same thing. I feel like the longer the season goes, the harder I see him fitting in a specific team. You know what I mean? Like before the season started, I thought he would look great on the Nets. But after watching the Nets play a couple of games, I'm like, wow, like Kyrie and KD look so good together, and this, it flows well. You know what I mean? And I guess Nets were one kind of popular team. Another popular destination for Harden was the Sixers, right? And I think the Sixers have the best record in the NBA right now. Like, are they gonna really break this up to bring up James Harden? Like, it's hard to imagine. I don't know.
Yeah, that's fair, but guess we'll see. You and I, we talked in the past a lot about James Harden, so guess that's just kind of a wait and see wait and see type situation. But
Word.
um, let's go to the other side of the coin. What's something that's kind of disappointed you thus far?
Oh, well, I guess the biggest disappointment for me is just kind of seeing all the early season injuries. You know what I mean? I guess even before the season began, Clay Thompson went down, and I feel like that's really hurts the Golden State Warriors. You know what I mean? And I think aside from him, Ja went down with his ankle injury. Dinwiddie has a partial tear in his ACL. Even Cody Zeller of the Hornets, who are looking pretty good, they started losing a bunch of games once he went down. I don't know why all these injuries are happening. Maybe it's because the season kind of happened so fast that maybe some players weren't in shape. Maybe it's the condensed schedule, but it's kind of unfortunate seeing players go down each week. I don't know. I hope these injuries stop.
Yeah, for sure. And speaking of injuries, we're recording this right as it's uh, uh it's we're kind of I think 2 hours removed from when Dante Exum literally a minute into a game he appeared to suffer some type of injury and they're waiting on the MRI
Oh no,
on
not
that.
Dante Exum, dude. He was
But
supposed to be the Aussie Mamba, dude.
speaking of, speaking of, I mean, I only thought of this because you bring up that nickname for Dante Exum. Who is this? Is for context, I didn't prep you on this question that I'm about to ask beforehand.
I know.
But who is a player that you were really high on? Like I guess when they either coming into the draft or maybe after you saw them as a rookie that you were really high on, but just didn't quite work out.
Ooh, that's an interesting question. I remember I was pretty high on Tyrell Terry for this year's draft. There was so much talk about his like basketball IQ, and I guess maybe he's an unfair answer because it's only been a couple of games and he had no preseason, but looks like he's not going to play a significant role for the Mavs at all. I guess another player that I think hasn't lived up quite to the hype was I remember Jan Vesley for the Wizards when he was drafted. He made out with this really attractive girlfriend, and people were talking about athleticism with this guy and how this guy was like the next big thing. But he kind of ended up sucking, and yeah, the rest is history.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Back to the topic of injuries, though. I do wonder, like the whole rest versus rust argument. Like is cramming all these games into a shorter period of time is that maybe bad for kind of player health and whatnot. They also reduce travel, so that is supposed to in theory help the fact that they're not bouncing around and sleeping at 3 a.m. and then playing a game the next day. But yeah, it's definitely unfortunate. Like you said, Clay got hurt before the season, so that was unfortunate because then the expectations for the Warriors changed, and then I was honestly the most bummed about the Spencer Dinwiddie injury because he's going to be
Word.
out for the year. I like him as a dude, and I also like watching him play. And I really feel like if he's healthy, like the Nets really do have a lot of chess pieces to play with, and the fact that they just kind of remove that is a little unfortunate. But
Yeah,
um,
I remember I think up until 2 years ago, I had never heard of Spencer Dinwiddie, but I remember last year, he was talking about some conversation he had with Kobe, and Kobe was like, "Yo, like Spencer Dinwiddie, he's like an all-star caliber player," and he was talking about how much it meant to him. You know what I mean? I think when I was reading that interview, I was like, "Wow, this guy's genuinely seems like a really nice guy who's worked really hard, earned his minutes in the league, and is now gonna be playing a big role." I feel like the Nets look so good the first couple of games when he was starting. And I guess next to Kyrie and KD, he also provided, elite ball handling. He could also carry the offense when Kyrie and KD would be rested. So it's really unfortunate to see this. And I think ever since he went down, I don't think the Nets have won a game. But I guess I'm also not too surprised by that result either.
yeah. Yeah, I mean the game against the Wizards, well, I was definitely surprised to see Kyrie and Katie miss shots
Oh
kind of
yeah,
down the stretch, but or in the final possession for the win. But yeah, well, I mean we'll see. Like, I try not to put too much stock into these early games, but I definitely think it'll be it is not I definitely think the Nets will feel the loss of Dinwiddie, whether it's in the playoffs or even maybe a couple months deep into the regular season, when Kyrie has to sit a few games or whatnot. I don't know, but back going back more onto the positive side, because I like keeping the positive vibes around here.
Word,
Like,
word.
what are some other things that have been pleasant surprises for you?
Oh, I think one thing I wasn't sure what I was expecting with LaMelo Ball, but this dude is balling out, dude, and I feel like it was interesting kind of seeing. I've been watching a decent number of Charlotte Hornets games because I have Devontae Graham on my fantasy team. I drafted Devontae Graham with the expectation that like, yo, LaMelo's not ready yet. Devontae Graham was killing it last season. And him and Terry Rozier, they're interesting backcourt, so. I was watching a lot of the Hornets games, and I guess Graham hasn't played that well, but LaMelo Ball, whenever he comes off the bench, him and Miles Bridges, dude, they just run and gun, dude. It's been really entertaining to watch. He looks like he fits right in. He might even take the starting spot from Graham soon. His passes are legit, man. He's definitely an NBA player, maybe even All-Star caliber one day.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of his overall play, he's obviously, as he's a rookie, so he's got some ups, he's got some downs, but he's definitely really exciting to watch. Like, when I know everyone's going to talk about how Terry Rozier dunked on
Oh
KD,
yeah.
but like LaMelo threw him a crisp, like pretty far pass to get there. And then obviously he's been throwing some dope lobs to Miles Bridges. I said this to someone else before the season, and I'm not saying that they're the same in terms of like caliber of player, but I genuinely actually think that the LaMelo to Miles Bridges alley oops are on this in terms of the excitement level that I have. It's very akin to the Dwayne Wade to LeBron, like the picture where Dwayne Wade's not even looking and he throws it behind him, and then LeBron's like jamming it. Like, I genuinely feel like there's going to be a lot of those types of iconic, maybe I shouldn't say iconic, but so it's those types of alley oops because Miles Bridges, I mean, he's a tall dude. He's a big, strong dude, but he's also got like a 40 something inch vertical. He's a left-handed too. And then obviously LaMelo is a very dynamic passer. But yeah, the Hornets are fun.
Yeah, and I guess this ties kind of earlier on to the earlier question you asked about, which prospect didn't live up to the hype. I remember when Ricky Rubio was coming and people were talking about how, this guy's a passing prodigy. And he definitely had his moments so far in his career, in Minnesota and the Suns, etc. But I feel like LaMelo Ball is kind of what I expected Ricky Rubio to be when he entered the league. You know what I mean? Like every pass he makes, even if it's a simple chest pass, he kind of does like a no look, or he just kind of flicks his wrist fast enough where the pass looks more flashy than it should be. You know what I mean? It's kind of incredible. This dude, like inch by inch, like is so entertaining.
Yeah, certainly. And like the Hornets have some good young pieces. Like, you got LaMelo, Devontae Graham and one guy he doesn't have like a lot of league pass appeal per se, the way, Miles Bridges and LaMelo do, but I think PJ Washington's legit. So
Oh
like
yeah, PJ Washington,
so
true.
like they're a very solid team. And that's before I even mentioned the fact that talk about a guy who I was very high on heading into the draft. Malik Monk has not even he's barely played for them.
Oh yeah, he's in
I
the
think
doghouse.
I think he's out of there. Like he's probably requesting a trade slash they've kind of I mean he's gonna be a restricted free agent and they're probably not even gonna extend they're probably gonna let him walk if it gets to free agency. So I think he's getting traded. Yeah, I think he's getting traded. But beyond that, like the Hornets have some fun pieces. They obviously had that really exciting game against the Nets the other day. So they've definitely been really league pass for sure.
Yeah, I never thought in my NBA fandom that I would willingly turn into a Charlotte Hornets game on a weekday, but here I am.
Yeah. Um, Another question that I have for you, kind of since we want to keep it on the positive side. Who do you think who do you think has made the biggest leap this year? Because we want to shout out dudes that have really put in the work and gotten better.
Well, one dude I've definitely noticed, Dante DiVincenzo on the Bucks. I feel like there was a lot of questions about the Bucks' depth coming into the season, especially because they traded away a lot of pieces for Drew Holiday, right? The Dante kind of had to start, step up as the starter on that team, but he's every three he's taking, it feels like it's gonna go in. He's ferocious on defense. He's giving them a lot of energy. He looks great next to Drew Holiday, and honestly, I feel like he's a strong contender for most improved player of the year.
Wow. Okay, that was a deep take because on paper he doesn't jump out as like a huge. Obviously, he's playing quality minutes for the Bucks, and the Bucks, in theory, they're trying to contend for a championship. I feel like the guy that everyone's talking about is making a leap. We'll see if it gets sustained. Is probably Colin Sexton.
Oh
He's
yeah, him and
he's
Darius Garland, right?
yeah.
Sexland.
Yeah, I mean, like, I'm gonna be honest. I never like. Granted, we'll see if if this if he can keep it up, but he's an absolute offensive machine right now. Like, he's shooting 55% for the floor, 54% from three, and he's averaging 26 points a game.
Yeah, I
Like,
think I watched the game that they went to overtime. I think it was against the Pistons. Dude, that game was pretty exciting, man. Sexton was everywhere. Garland was throwing bombs. I feel like that was the only game Kevin Love might have played. He looked okay. But like Kevin Love is a NBA champion. He was just a role player next to these the young backcourt. Sexland, dude.
yeah, uh, it's I've definitely gotten a few giggles out of that nickname, but um, yeah, I mean, like I said, I wouldn't anticipate that these averages keep up. If they do, like, Sexton is easily the most improved player because, like, who the hell saw like 25 points a game from him?
True.
You know,
But to be fair, I'm opening up. I have Basketball Reference open right now. Dante DiVincenzo is averaging 63% from threes this season.
holy smokes,
Crazy, dude.
holy
Yeah, he's
smokes.
making 3.2 a game on 5 attempts. That's legit, dude. He's a lead shooter. He went from 26.5% in his rookie year, 33% last year to 63. Dude, that's a leap.
Yeah, that's a leap for sure. And speaking of leaps, not regarding a player, but leaps in the standings. Is there a team that maybe their win loss has been better than what you've expected? Granted, it's only we're only like 7-ish games into the season, but is there a team that has really surprised you with regards to just how well they've been playing?
So I guess if we were recorded this a couple of days ago, I might have said Orlando Magic, but I think they also played the Wizards twice, so I'm not sure if that counts. I guess aside from that, I guess I'm a bit surprised that the Sixers have such a good record. I think the only game they lost was when they rested Joel Embiid. I honestly haven't watched too many Sixers games this season, so I'm not exactly sure what kind of changed. I don't know if their schedule was easy or not. I guess I'm also pretty surprised by how well Atlanta is doing. I watched some of their games, and I'm not a big fan of Trae Young drawing his fouls by jumping backwards into the defender. He's kind of become like a more unwatchable version of James Harden in some ways. But that's I know a lot of people are big fans of Trae, but it's just not my cup of tea.
Fair, fair. Granted, like I said, this is only 7 games in, so I don't want to overreact. But I'm certainly surprised that the Knicks are, they've been competent so far. And
Oh yeah,
yeah, like, my dude Julius Randle had a triple double in a win, and they also smacked the Bucks. Like, I don't think they're a playoff team by any means, but like Tibbs has, granted, like, Tibbs is the coach now, but like Tibbs has those dudes playing hard, and he has them prepared. So I imagine they're probably going to win more games maybe than like the Vegas over under might have suggested, but like they're at least trending in the right direction, as in they're operating more like a professional team as opposed to years past where they were an absolute shit show.
yeah, it's crazy, man. I feel like Alfred Payton is just either like the worst player in the league or the best player in the league, and there's not really much in between.
Yeah, definitely a little bit of a Jekyll and Hyde type player, but so I'm talking about how, I don't want to overreact just because we're only 6-7 games into the year, but I'm curious for you, like, when do you think there's enough games have been played to where we can start drawing bigger conclusions, whether it's about specific teams or about like who should be the favorite for certain awards? I'm curious kind of like what your benchmark is. Is it a quarter of the season? Is it maybe 3/8? I don't know. Like I'm curious kind of what your benchmark is.
Yeah, that's a good question. I feel like in the past couple of past seasons, I would have said probably around the Christmas Day games. Is kind of when you know what's real and what's not. But I guess with this condensed schedule, it's definitely hard. But I guess before the season used to start in October, right? So I guess it was like around 2 months of games. And I guess maybe in this condensed schedule, maybe it'll be like a month and a half. But yeah, but I feel like once, especially with the new schedule, I know there have been some back-to-back series where I think, for example, the Wizards and the Magic played the same matchup. I think within like 2 3 days, right, to reduce travel. So I feel like with some of those, if you get kind of lucky with the matchups you have, your record might get inflated at the beginning, but it'll eventually catch up. So it's, yeah, I guess that's a long way to say. I'm not 100% sure, but maybe I guess 2 months is maybe a good amount of data.
Sure, yeah, and on that note, like they've only released like the schedule for the first half
The
of the
first half.
season, so it's like you said, some people may have just played. They might be closer to some bad teams and therefore have played more against those teams and whatnot, and so it'll definitely be like there's definitely going to be some inflated records and some potentially under, I guess, deflated records as well, but. I think generally speaking, like for me, maybe at least this year, I'm thinking maybe like I don't know, since there's only 72 games, maybe about 30 games in, you can start talking about like, okay, who's the front runner for MVP, and like
Mhm.
is this team like a serious threat, or are they a playoff team, or is this team just straight up tanking?
Right,
So
right.
yeah, I mean, it's a year unlike no other. So like, I don't like obviously, kind of like you, I don't have a definitive answer, but guess we'll see.
Yeah, I guess if you had to kind of predict right now, who would you say is kind of the early season MVP so far for you?
So I just want to say through 7 games, obviously. So this doesn't really mean too much, but sheesh. Okay, well,
Or I guess maybe to kind of amend my question, would you say like your preseason expectations for who MVP is all looking good?
I'm gonna be honest. Um, Not really. Like the guys that I thought might challenge for MVP so far have just been they've been fine. Like for instance, I think the front runner in the beginning was Luca,
Oh,
and
dang.
Luca still very well could win the MVP. But the problem is, or not the problem. Right now, he's just shooting it terribly from three.
Yeah.
He
Although
got
he did beat the Clippers by 51 points.
he did they did. Right now, he's shooting 16% from three. He had a couple games where he went 0 for 5, 0 for 5, and then another game where he went 0 for 6. But I expect that'll get better. And then once that gets better, um, I'm sure there will be a little more Lucas steam. The thing, and then another guy that I thought might have a serious push were the Sixers duo. That's still very possible. Like
Hmm.
Ben Simmons has been good. Joel Embiid has been good. The Sixers obviously have the best record in the NBA, so they've been good. Just not sure if either one quite has like had that MVP signature type game, like where they've announced like, yeah, I'm the front runner. You know what I mean? Um,
Yeah.
but at the end of the day, like who really has outside of Steph, and outside of Steph and
And skinny Jokic.
Skinny Jokic? Yeah, I mean we'll see. I guess this isn't this is I just this isn't regarding MVP, but like I do think that some early candidate, not early, some people that definitely come into mind when I think of Coach of the Year. Um, I know I would say Bickerstaff on Cleveland has done a good job, as well as the new guy on Indiana. I like how Indiana's been playing so far, and then also Doc Rivers because this he's got the Sixers playing well together.
Yeah, I remember they were saying, Greg Popovich kind of has like his network of his disciples in the league now. I guess it's kind of Nick Nurse's turn, right?
Yeah, it's ironic. I mean, once again, super early, but the Raptors have been struggling and the Pacers have been doing well. So maybe I can't even say the coach's name, but maybe he was onto something.
All good, all good.
But yeah. Anyhow, long season. It's been about 30 minutes, so I think that's a good place to wrap it up. But we got a lot of basketball ahead of us, so I'm sure that I'll have you on like pretty soon and pretty periodically. So we'll chat obviously more about the NBA. So I appreciate you coming on, Ji Hun.
Yeah, no problem, dude. Happy to chat about the NBA anytime. Stay safe and happy late holidays.
Yeah, you too. And to the listeners, if you haven't done so already, please subscribe on whatever medium you're listening to this on, whether it's Apple Podcasts, Spotify, SoundCloud, or YouTube. Once again, thank you for listening, and thank you once again, Ji Hun, for joining me.